space. My name is Orisia Hrudka. I am a journalist at the Euromaidan Press, and today we will be talking with our colleagues Zaza, Abashidze, and Akaki Zarkua from the Georgian media outlet RealPolitika, which is based in Tbilisi. And we will be talking about the current protests in Georgia. So the mass protest in Georgia started 3 days ago against the law on foreign agents, which is actually very similar to the same law in Russia and is obviously anti-democratic. Thousands of people came out to the streets, and there were also some clashes with the police, and more than 100 people were detained. Today's morning there was also news about Georgian parliament withdrawing the law, but at the same time the Georgian civil society is quite suspicious of that move and says that the protests will continue today. So Zaza, could you please tell us what's currently going on in Tbilisi, as well as maybe other Georgian cities, and will there be any protests this evening?
Orisia,
Yeah.
hello.
Hello. Yeah.
First of all, thanks. And at the start of our conversation, I want to thank to the Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian society. We are together in Ukraine for 2 weeks, and it was really amazing, and I feel very motivated. So take this gratitude from us. So now the situation in Tbilisi is quite difficult because 3 days ago the Georgian Dream, I mean the ruling party, in a high-speed manner and secretly started to adopt the law, which is very much similar to the Russian one. I mean, the law against the foreign agents, and which was also adopted in Hungary by Viktor Orban. So they started it and they implemented this law in the parliament. And after that, Georgian society was very angry, and there was huge demonstrations in Tbilisi. Well, I was in Ukraine at that time, but my friends and colleagues and spectators are telling me that there was a huge crowd and it was the biggest demonstration in recent years. So after that, we can say that today ruling party withdrew this bill, but still there are some space for there is still many problematic issues because, for example, yesterday the Georgian special forces, the forces used brutal force against the demonstrators. There was too many videos. They were beating peaceful demonstrators. They were beating journalists. They were beating the women, men, children. So they were acting like the Russian OMON. So it was very similar to Russian policies and what Russian special forces are doing during the demonstrations. Or maybe the good example is also what Berkut was doing during the Yanukovych era. So it was very similar. And I want to say that today there is also one big demonstration after 1 hour where I will go also, and I think there will be too many people. So still these demonstrations are continuing, and well, we are waiting what will be the final answer from Georgian Dream about this law, which was very similar to Russian law. And you can see that in recent week, for example, Maria Zakharova, Peskov, and other Russian officials made comments about this law, and they were criticizing European Union and somehow encouraging Georgian Dream. So well, everything is clear for Georgian society, and I think everything is clear for our foreign partners. Well, this is another clear sign that, from my point of view, Georgian government is trying to. I don't know what to say. Well, maybe they are trying to change the course of the country. So let's see what happens. But I feel that they are looking to the Kremlin side right now. So that's a very problematic issue for Georgia.
You compared a bit the situation which is now in Georgia to the one which was happening in Ukraine in 2013 and 14, yes. Making this comparison with Berkut. Can you think that this process can now grow to something bigger? So now there are just a few days of the protest, but can it become something similar to Euromaidan revolution which took place in Ukraine?
Well, I think it is not big, but it is already a victory that Georgian Dream is trying to withdraw this bill. But everyone right now in Tbilisi is talking that it is not enough because the red line was crossed by Georgian government when they decided to implement this law. So, well, in the streets, in the television, in the radio, everyone is calling to the Georgian Dream members the traitors. I mean the critical masses and not the members of the Georgian Dream or the supporters. So, it was a red line. It was a red line for me. It was a crossed line for the vast majority of Georgian society. So, well, I don't have still a clear answer what will be in the future, but I think these demonstrations will continue. And also, I think these demonstrations, if it ends, it still not disappears because we have elections after 1.5 years. So I think the spirit of these demonstrations will stay in the Tbilisi and will stay in the country, and this will be problematic. This will be a big problem for our government. So I still don't know what will be in the near future, but I believe that these demonstrations will help the changes in my countries, which is very much needed right now.
Mhm. Could you tell also a little bit about this law on the foreign agents and what could be the detrimental consequences of this? Or is it now not relevant anymore and you are like, I don't know, 90% sure that it will not be implemented?
Well, I'm not relaxed, and I think the Georgian society is not relaxed because in the past, Georgian Dream made some commitments and they did not fulfill it. So we know this experience, and we are still ready for resistance. Well, this law was very similar to what was adopted in Russia in 2012. At first it was, well, it was quite different from today's law, which is used in Russia. So, but the signs are, very frightful for us, and it was. Well, the Georgian members are talking that we only need this transparency. We are not going to involve in the daily work of the Georgian CSOs, media, and etc. But we knew this narrative. We knew this narrative from Putin's Russia. They also copied these messages that, for example, head of the Georgian Dream said that, there is agents in the different areas in economics, for example, we are using this word agent. So why it is problem? So you maybe someone from our listeners remember that Putin was saying the same thing. So, well, we are not relaxed. And for me, I think it will be, well, we need to continue this protest because I don't trust my government. I don't trust Georgian Dream. They are all the time trying to lie to us. So, well, I think this protest and this resistance must continue.
Thank you. And I see that Aka has joined us now as well. Aka, can you hear us?
Oh,
Because there were some problems with Aka joining in the beginning. Well, looks like he's
yes. I think the problem is still continuing.
he's not here yet. So while we are waiting, one more question to you, Zaza.
Yes, with great pleasure.
Yes, so there are obviously similarities with Euromaidan, but there are also major differences. Weirdly enough, your president has supported the protesters and said that she will impose veto on that law. But as I understand, according to the Georgian law, the parliament can just overcome this veto. So is it really that this is a clash between the Georgian population and Georgian society and the parliament, and is the president really on the people's side, or is it just some kind of a play? How can you explain this?
Well,
Yeah.
it is quite hard, that it is really very difficult to well, compare or to say something about about our president's actions, because, well, from time to time, she's making different actions. But right now, I think that she supported the Georgian people. She supported our EU integration. But this support is much. It was more kind of moral one, because she does not have any power, so this veto will be withdrawn also after 1 week. So in general, well, it is still nice to hear some good words from our president, but well, she's got no power in reality. And the second part of your question is that I think that it is now Georgian Dream versus Georgian people, because I'm saying this because, for example, the choice of the Georgian people is the European Union, and it is very clear. And according to the latest surveys, 85% of Georgian society is supporting EU integration. So and you can see the very different people, for example, the sportsmen, the actors, well, activists, and many, many more people say the word against this bill. So it is very clear that right now Georgian society is against this law, and right now the Georgian government is on the other side. And this is not very usual scene in Georgia, because in the past we had many problematic bills, many problematic issues, but Georgian society was not as active as they are today. So it is really nice to see the active Georgians, active young generation. They are waving EU flag. They are saying that EU integration is only path of Georgia. So, well, I feel very motivated, because in the past weeks or months, well, if you talk to the activists or opposition members in Georgia, the nihilism was so high that you can feel it. So I think that the situation is changing right now in Georgia. It does not mean that the victory is on our hand, but there are some good signs for it. So I wish that maybe after the election the changes will come, or if this will be even earlier, I will be more than happy. So, well, let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who are these people behind the protests? So I understand there are quite a lot of people protesting, but perhaps
Yes.
there are some new leaders or groups, some NGOs who are leading the protests. And do you think they can give rise to some strong Georgian opposition? Because as I understand now, Georgia is lacking the new alternative to the current government.
Well, the strange situation is that no one is in charge as a leader. For example, if you look to the audience of the protest, you can see that there was Generation Z or Z, or the young members of the Georgian society. I mean, the guys who are teenagers or in their early 20s, they are very active and involving in these processes. And, well, there is no clear leader from the oppositional side, and there is no clear leader from CSOs or the media. So it is very strange, but I think right now it is not bad, because Georgian politics is very much fragmented, so there are many groups and they don't like each other. So this configuration right now is working, and is working very well. So I don't know what will be in the future, and I wish that there will be some leader or some leaders, because leaders are much needed in the process, I mean in the political process. But right now this configuration is really good, because everyone is staying in the Rustaveli Avenue, which is the main avenue in Tbilisi, like for example Khrestatzik in Kiev, and there is no one leader. So these fragmented groups are together, and they are waving flag, and they are making statements against Georgian Dream, and it looks very nice right now. But it also means that we have a crisis in Georgian politics when we don't have any, when we don't see the clear leaders in the oppositional side. So, well, this is the challenge, and this will be challenged during 1.5 years before the elections. So I think somehow oppositional members and oppositional parties should think about it and should change the situation, because it is very hard to make changes without leaders. And Well, there was Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, but when she flew from the country, we see that without clear leader and only with peaceful demonstrations, it is very hard to change the system, which is very much like to Russian ones. So I mean, we have the Belarusian experience, and there was huge messes in the streets of Minsk, but changes did not come. So I think we should take this experience. Also, we should take the experience from Maidan, and we must make our plans very cleverly. So I hope there will be some leaders in the oppositional side, because it is very much needed to make changes, and changes also is very much needed, because without it, I feel that we will stay in this post-Soviet side where Russia and Belarus are the main belong. So.
Um, some ideas that unite the protesters are not only just ideas against this law, right? So during the process, we could see a lot of posters which are anti-Russian, so which questions the Russian influences in Georgia. There are also protesters which were singing the anthem of the European Union during the protest. So can you tell a little bit about these aspirations of Georgian society towards the move to the EU and further away from the Russian influences, and how important are these EU aspirations in Georgia and for Georgians, and how would you compare them to perhaps EU aspirations in Ukraine?
Honestly, I can answer, but I see that
Oh,
Aka is
I
online, so
see him.
maybe he can answer this
Yeah,
question. So.
Akaf, we are glad that you were able to join as well. You should perhaps switch on your microphone and we can hear you.
Okay, now we can.
Yeah, we can hear you. Hello.
Now you can hear
Yes.
me. Yeah. So excuse me for this delay because it was some problem with
Yeah.
connection. So if I'm right, you mentioned Georgia's aspiration, Euro-Atlantic aspiration. Can
Yes.
you just repeat the question because I don't hear whole thing?
Yeah. So I
No.
mean that during the protests which are currently taking place in Georgia, we saw Georgians singing the European anthem during this protest,
Yeah.
and the question is just about these aspirations to enter the EU. How important are they for Georgians?
Yeah, it's obviously the most important and unifying thing right now in Georgia, in my opinion. Because if you look at the polls, if you look at, I don't know, I mean, minds of people, the main thing and maybe most unifying thing is that our pro-European and the Euro-Atlantic integration process is the main thing which unifies most of Georgians, and it can be seen in polls, in other things. So, and it's the most important thing in current Georgia, and I mean it can be the same for Georgia's last 30 years maybe after the collapse of Soviet Union. It's obviously most important thing, and after this protest and with this protest we're seeing that now it is the same for our younger generation, the generations that they called, and we are seeing them now participating in the protest, and they are as much pro-European and Euro-Atlantic as the elder generations. So I think it's the single most important thing right now in Georgia, what can unify majority and I mean decisive majority in Georgia.
Aka, what is your personal attitude or feelings about the protests which are currently going on in Georgia? We discussed this a little bit with Zaza, and it would be also
Yeah,
interesting to. What are your even expectations? What do you expect from these protests?
yeah. The thing is, I mean, when this protest started, we were with you in Ukraine. You know about it, and we were discussing it a little bit meanwhile in Ukraine. But the thing is that now these protests, in my opinion, are very unusual. In terms that now it seems like that politicians and political groups and politicians are not so how to say, they are not dictating anything to these protesters. These protests are, this construction
They
of
are
this
not in
protest.
charge, as
Yeah, yeah,
I think.
yeah, they are not in charge, and the protests are like spontaneous maybe, and no one can tell the protesters what they can do or what they cannot do, and this is the main difference, I think. And we are seeing now, as I mentioned, this younger generations participating. I think it's the first it's the first time in Georgia's history that they are participating in such protests. So the thing is, it's very difficult to predict something out from this protest, because I think it's a major shift in Georgian protests, recent protests history. It's nothing unlike that happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It's something new, and we have to look at it carefully. We don't know what will be their positions. I guess there is some slim chances that protests will lose some steam, but we have to wait. We have to see what happens today. And if we take into consideration our government's lies and the dismemberment of people in the last 2-3 years, it's obvious that this dangerous moment, still persists, and they can also rewind all the today's decisions. And
Uh,
the problem is not solved, obviously. So we have to wait out. We have to see what will be the future of this protest. But I think it will be there will be continuation. I think,
uh,
yeah,
Aga, can I add one sentence? Because
of
I
course,
also want to say that we should be aware that this protest combines the angers of the past. Because, for
yeah,
example, in the latest months, Georgian government insulted the Georgian fighters in Ukraine, and also Georgian society was very angry these years that Bidzina Ivanishvili's connections to Kremlin and to Russia, and we knew that he was the owner of the 1% of Gazprom, and I think he still owns. And after the war in Ukraine, the Georgian government all the time and insulting also the Ukrainian officials, and well, they were saying, the neutral or pro-Kremlin statements that Ukraine can't win in this fight, in this war, and etc., etc. So, to sum up, this protest combines the angers, and I think it is the reason why it is so massive and why people are so active. So
yeah.
that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, and I also will add that probably most of you seen these scenes of burning police machines and resistance. That is really, really unusual for Georgia's protests, because I think it has to do something with our past, with civil wars that erupted after the collapse of Soviet Union. So after that, this kind of protest, what we are seeing usually in Western European countries, which basically can be described as riot, is really, really rare in Georgia. And we are seeing now it in Rustaveli Avenue in the major protests, and we see resistance of people. It's something new that never happened before. And that's why I'm taking it carefully, that we cannot predict much about this protest, because it's really something new that never occurred before. It's really new for Georgia.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned that these protests are against Russian influences in Georgia, and indeed, I saw some pictures with posters that Russia is occupying force and we should not ask Moscow what to do, and some other posters like that. And how strong now is this Russian influences in Georgia? And what
Yeah.
is the people's attitude to these Russian influences? If you have some data from polls, it
Well,
would be also good
yes.
to demonstrate.
Orisia, well, as I said, that Georgian people will support the EU integration, and it is some kind of answer to this question. I mean, the 85% is very pro-EU, and most of them are anti-Kremlin. And in general, it is very common that in the Georgian protests that demonstrators have the signs against Kremlin, and especially after the war in Ukraine, and especially after if you look to the demonstrations in Georgia in past 10 years, also you can see lots of anti-Russian signs, and this is the how to say I think, in my opinion, and this is my personal view, that Georgian society is against Kremlin, and Georgian society is against Kremlin very active after the war in Ukraine, and after too many Russians came in Georgia, and they are trying to somehow avoid these sanctions, and to live here happily. So you can feel this if you walk in the streets of Tbilisi. There are too many Ukrainian flags, there are too many anti-Kremlin signs, and if you talk with people, I mean, mostly the young generation is very anti-Kremlin, and anti-Russian I mean, the Putin's Russia. So it is very clear, and that's why I said that right now, and for me it was in the past also, the Georgian government is against Georgian people. So from my point of view, Georgian government is very much connected to Russia, and we have this how to say proofs with Ivanishvili, whose son, for example, Bera Ivanishvili, is still citizen of Russia, and Ivanishvili, who had many actives in Russia. And for example, after 2012, when Ivanishvili's government came, Georgia became dependent to Russia from the economical side. And there are too many things. And for example, in the last if you look to the statements after last year, after the war in Ukraine, you can see that Kremlin high officials are very much happy with Georgian Dream actions, and I know how it happened that the Kremlin officials are happy and the EU officials are unhappy with Georgian government. So it means a lot for me, and it means a lot for Georgian society. So these demonstrations are, we can say very clear, that against Georgian dream and against Russia, because we remember that war is going in Ukraine. We remember that our first opponent is Russia, and we have our experiences also. So I think that Georgian society is very clear from that point of view.
And I will also add some couple points here. I think in these protests, protests are against as much as Georgia's government as Russia's, because the latest moves of the Georgian governments, I mean, including this agents law, which was like culprit of Russia's law, this was labeled and perceived in Georgia's wide society as a clear Russian law, and it was this. I mean, to accept this law in first reading in legislation was perceived in Georgia's public widely as treason. I mean, nothing more than a treason, And these people who voted for this law in first reading, they were perceived as treasoners, And of course, there was no question about Georgia's geopolitical choice in the wider public of the wider population of Georgia. As Zaza mentioned, that the polls, it's really obvious, and it's really landslide support for European integration. It's nothing of a question, it's all set, if you can say this. And now we have Georgian government and Russia's influences in Georgia now are accumulated in Georgia's government actions. Actually, before that, they have some marginal groups like this alt info and kind of that things, kind of that groups that they were like against and beating journalists and also LGBTQ activists on Pride months and kind of that things. But now we are seeing that this messaging and their message box, like this Russian message box, shifted from these marginal groups to Georgia's government actually, and now we are seeing Georgia's government officials, highest officials, who are speaking on Russian talking points, Kremlin's talking points, as they are talking about some kind of global party of war, which is trying to somehow trap Georgia into war to open second front, and this was their main this Georgian government's official attitude toward the ongoing war in Ukraine last year, and they were like it crystallized, if we can say like this, their pro-Russian attitudes crystallized after Russia's full-scale invasion in Ukraine. So we are now seeing it's some kind of moment of truth where the masks are off, if we can like that, if we can say it like this, and yeah, that's a basic. I mean, that's uh,
Yes,
our
Aga,
picture
maybe
today.
you are saying that now it is a moment of black and white. There is no
Yeah,
room
yeah,
for the gray zone.
yeah,
So, and it started
yeah,
after the war in
yeah,
Ukraine. So
yeah,
we can see after that how Georgian
yeah,
government members are acting. For example, the Ukrainian audition knows very well Kakakaladze, who was playing for Dynamo Kiev, and now he's one of the leader of the Georgian Dream, and he's also the mayor of Tbilisi. And he said, for example, days ago that we don't need the EU candidate status. So it was the how to say it was the clear message
yeah,
for us how Georgian government is looking to the future, how Georgian government is looking to the EU integration processes, and etc. So now everything is clear. For example, well, for me it was clear maybe 5 years ago or maybe 7 years ago. I never voted for the Georgian Dream because from the start of this group, I I already knew that what their ideas was based on, but Georgian audience now have feeling, I think, and now they knew that Georgian Dream is well is on the other side, and they are
yeah,
very much connected to Kremlin. So I don't know the forms of this connection, and I'm not interested, but I'm interested in results, and I can see that, for example, Georgia's EU integration have very big problems right now, and we have very big problems from the human rights in the human rights, and we have the police regime. For example, Georgian special forces are making unofficial recordings. They are recording the politicians, activists, and they are then publishing, for example, some sex scenes and etc. So, which is very much like to the post-Soviet politics, and which is very much which was very approved for which is very approved in Putin's Russia, and this is the instrument. So they have the playbook from Kremlin, and they are trying to use it in Georgia. But I still believe, and I believe after these demonstrations, that we will resist, and Georgia will not become the Russia. It is impossible because I have feeling that society the Georgian society feels that this is high time to resist and to say truth and to act against the Georgian government.
Thank you. And before I ask the next question, I also invite you, our listeners, to write your questions in the comments to the tweet about this Twitter space on our Twitter page. And meanwhile, I would like to ask you also about the people who were detained. What do you know? What's happening to them now? And for how long they were detained? And am I right that there were almost 130 persons
Yes,
in detention, right?
near the 200 activists and politicians are arrested, and most of them are beaten by Georgian special forces. This is kind of new also. You know, the Georgian special forces were violating the laws all the time, but now they made it very clear, and they were beating to the activists and the politicians inside the cameras, in front of cameras, in front of journalists. They also beat some journalists. So now I think these prisons are full. There are 200 person in the prison, and we still don't know what will be the final decision. I think at some point they will be released, but this is also the new new sign when the Georgian special forces are acting like OMON and acting like Berkut or Yanukovych's Berkut. Well, this is a new sign that brutality from the Georgian government will continue and will continue. Yeah, that's my perception. Well, I don't know, Waka, maybe you agree with me or no?
Yeah. Yeah, basically, one of the Georgians' main opposition leaders, Surab Japaridze, allegedly, I mean, he's detained and allegedly, I mean, or even public defender of Georgia's, which is not that, not opposition figure really. Like, I mean, he's an opposition party, but he's leaning toward the ruling party, and he's influenced heavily by ruling party. He said that he's, I mean, signs of beating are on the face, so he maybe need hospitalization. It's something not that new, but it really didn't happen in Georgia very long time. So the aggressive attitude of special forces and policemen, they trying to Georgia's government, they try to uh, project the strength and I don't know how to say, I mean, to intimidate people to come out to protest. And I mean, there are, a lot of them are detained now. As we know, the prison cell time is this KPZ cells, like presumable detainment, are full in Tbilisi, and now they are moving outside Tbilisi. So because every cells in Tbilisi are full with an activist, so that's how it looks like right now. A lot of them are detained, and we don't know what will happen to them. Maybe also some prosecutions also will be initiated by Georgia's government.
And Aka, I
Yeah,
think I have feeling that there will the Georgian forces will use their force today also, because I have feeling that today will be big demonstration and I'm planning to go there. So
yeah,
I think they will use the same method and they will
yeah,
try to use the power. So I think it is not the end. So there will be more prisoners and there will
yeah.
be more beaten people, unfortunately. And let's see also what happens today, because we have the past 2 days experience and it was brutal, you know. Well, when I'm saying that OMON, it is, well, I'm not trying to exaggerate things. They are really acting like Russian OMON, and it worries me a lot.
Yeah, it's obvious that their attitudes becomes more and more aggressive by days, actually. And yeah, that's a picture right now, and we don't know. I mean, we are in the middle of the process, and it's too early to call uh, I don't know, some results for it. I mean, we are in the middle of the process, and I think it is very much likely that there will be new developments on today's protest also.
We will keep following what's going on in Georgia, and Zaza and Aka, if you also plan to go there, I wish you good luck. And
Thank you.
yeah, today. And
Thank you,
meanwhile, we have a
Lucy.
question from Matthew. He asks about your government. Was it actually democratically elected?
Oh, it's a difficult question. You know, in the last elections, I mean, they came to power basically democratically. They were elected in 2012, I guess it was, when
Yes.
government changed. But in the last elections, in the general elections, there were major questions to the legitimacy and to the counts of to the count process also. But after that, we have local elections, where basically, if you look to this assessment of international missions, OCE and others, you will see there is like bad, really, really bad assessments about Georgia's elections, and basically we can say that Georgia's opposition, they won in some biggest, I mean, in the second biggest and third biggest city in Georgia, but government managed to, I don't know how to say, but they basically ruled out this vote counts, and they basically installed their mayors by force. I don't think it will be exaggeration. And if you look at this OCE and other organizations and missions assessment about local elections, you will see a lot of problems there. So it
So
really,
to answer this question, I think we must remember the phrase the competitive authoritarianism, because formally the elections were free and we have institutions, judiciary system, prosecutors office, etc. But it is formally, and in the reality the situation is different. If you take the latest elections of parliament, parliamentary election, which was 3 years ago, 2012, 2020. Well, it was not free because I was at the time in Georgia and I knew all the thing how Georgian Dream won these elections. I mean, they used huge money. They used this shaming campaign against opposition. They used criminals. They falsificate the numbers in election numbers, and they used all these tricks, which is very common in the different countries in post-Soviet area. So I don't think that these results were fair, and that was the reason why opposition started boycott at the time. So then there was another election in last year, and it was the same. They used the same tricks. So, both elections for me was not fair, and well, they are still our Georgian Dream is our governmental party, unfortunately, but these elections was not fair, unfortunately. So this is my answer to this question.
yeah. And basically, after this Russian law thing, they have now quite a big problem with their legitimacy, I think. And it
Yes.
will come out in the next months. I think we will see more evidence of this.
Yeah, Zaza.
Yes. Well, to just one sentence is that well, you can watch elections day in Georgia, and it is real hell if you follow the situation in Georgia, and you can see all the stuffs and all the how to say all the steps which was done in Russia. So everything is happening during the elections day. You can see lots of criminals. You can see people beat people. You can see when the forces
People with
are
guns. Yeah.
yes, and yeah, there was the many different cases. So it is the really hell day, I can say. So this election was not fair. I can repeat once more.
And despite all this difficulties with the elections, do you think that the current government and all the people, most of the people who are in parliament, can survive politically after this protest? So, because the whole thing seems that the society is now very much polarized with the government on all levels.
Well,
So, some new people and some oppositional maybe parties should emerge.
yeah, or is that before I can answer? So I can say that if the changes happens, I think that they have no future in the politics, and some of them I think even don't have future in Georgia, just like other leaders leave the countries. And once again, I can say about it. I can highlight the Yanukovych case and other cases. So, well, right now the problem is that the opposition is also very weak in Georgia, and from my point of view, that's why changes are not happening. But I wish that the situation will be changed, because the governmental parties' support are around 20%, and I mean the persons who are working in public sectors, and with some other persons with black money and etc. and etc. So they are not popular, but unfortunately there is not alternative. So that is a problem for me. And if this alternative becomes clear, I think that they will have no future in the Georgian politics. And especially after this law, the perception is that we have 78 traitors in the parliament, and everyone is saying in Georgia so that they are traitors, and you can see that even some of the Georgian Dream supporters are saying the same thing, because there are some Georgian Dream supporters who are also supporting the EU integration. So for the Georgian society, those guys who voted to this bill are the traitors. So well, I think and I wish they have no future in the public life, and they have no future in the politics. Because only reason why they are still existing in the politics are the Bidzina Ivanishvili, power and money behind them. But I wish that this situation will be changed in the near future. So let's see.
Yeah, and to add a couple points to this, the thing with authoritarian leaders, in my opinion, is that if you can fail if you are an authoritarian leader, you can fail in many things, in economic development, in social sphere, in political development also. But you have to be successful in repressing alternative. And this was the case with Bidzina Ivanishvili. All these years, he was really, really successful to suppress, to repress any political alternative to him, to his power. And that's why we are now in this at this point, because I think Georgia's population is really ready for major changes, but they don't see any major alternatives to Bidzina Ivanishvili's power. About this Bidzina Ivanishvili's puppets and his Georgian Dream Party, these people, they don't have any political autonomy or um, any political weight by themselves. Their source of legitimacy are only one, and this is Bidzina Ivanishvili. And they are not perceiving that they are like public servants or kind of that things. They are servant of Bidzina Ivanishvili. Exactly because of that. Because Bidzina Ivanishvili made them who they are today. So basically, if changes occur and Bidzina Ivanishvili loses power, these people are basically no one. They don't have any political weight. They don't have any support in public. So they are finished basically if such changes occur. And I will hope that such changes occur. But still, we have some problems with some big problems with Georgia's opposition, because opposition parties altogether, they are not as strong to defeat Bidzina Ivanishvili on polls right now. But I think the thing with this protest, really new thing with this protest is that now we have, for the first time, I think, such a big moral high ground to the powers party. And now you are seeing that they are making some steps back. It's not enough, obviously, but still we have such this moral high ground. So if we are going to the election processes with such a moral high ground, the opposition figures, and I mean, I mean the people who are against Georgia's government, we will definitely be able to defeat Bidzina Ivanishvili in the polls also. Right now, we have such a moral high ground, and I think everything must be done to preserve this moral high ground and to step it up to the next elections, or even maybe to faster this election processes also. I think snap elections also it's obviously not ruled out for this moment, but we have to see, we have to look at development, how it will develop, and how this process will fold out in the nearest days.
Thank you for your answers, and let's follow the situation in Georgia, and indeed some major changes may occur. So let's follow that.
Yeah.
And I will just tell our audience that in fact Zaza and Aka have just returned from Ukraine just recently, and our common project of RealPolitika and Euromaidan Press will be coming in some weeks, and
Yeah.
so keep following. You will see it, and there also will be an interview about Russian refugees.
Yeah.
Not refugees, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Russian. I don't
Yeah.
know even how to say it. The people who
Well, maybe
fled.
Russian
Relocants.
nomads.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's the most beautiful. It's relocants. So
Relocants, yeah. I
yeah.
just, yeah, yeah, yeah. So people who fled mobilization in Russia, and this interview is mostly about this. So just please keep following, and thanks everyone who joined today. And I wish you good luck, Zaza and Aka, today in the evening
Yeah.
Oresti,
in Tbilisi.
thank you, and thanks everyone who was listening to us. And we are very glad for our cooperation, and well, wait for our materials. And I think also that today's demonstration will be peaceful, and in the near future we will have some good news from Georgia, because at the end of the day, we Georgians, Ukrainians, and Moldovans should win against Russia, and we must be in the EU at one day together. So that's my that's what I want, and that's what I wish.
It's a great last words, yeah.
Thank you, Orisia, again, and thank you to all the listeners. And keep in touch. Hopefully, everything will be okay. And obviously, wish Ukraine decides to win as soon as it will be possible. It's the main thing for us right now in Georgia, also.
We wish the same to Georgia as well. Yep.
Thanks a
Thank you.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.